Sure.
Yes, sir.
So let's get started. So first question was where we can download latest Selenium. So you need to go to selenium.dev and then go to download. And from here, you'll be downloading the latest stable version of Selenium. And now where to get Eclipse? So simply type download Eclipse. And in case you're using JDK 1.8, so the supported version, go to download packages. And here, if you go a little down, you'll see 2021-06. So you need to click here. And then you need to download this one based on Windows or Mac. Right? So any more questions before we get started? Anyone, any questions before we get started? Okay, so let us do a little revision of what we did yesterday. Let me open up that notepad. So we have seen that Selenium is not a tool. It's basically an API, a framework, or a collection of jar files. Right now, we have added just one single jar, but there are like once we start using some build tools or dependency management tool, then you're going to see a lot of jar files will be adding. Once we add Selenium, there are a couple more jar files that automatically going to get added. So that we're going to see how we can do that. And then we have seen that Selenium supports multiple languages. It supports multiple browsers. And the other thing, it supports multiple OS, as in the platform support is also there. So you can run your automation test on Windows, on Linux, on Mac, on Solaris, on iOS, on Android. All major operating systems are supported by Selenium. This is because, let's say, if we talk about QTP UFT, anyone know which language is supported by QTP? Which language QTP? VBScript. Correct. And if we talk about VBScript, which operating system VBScript runs on? Windows, exactly. Because it's a Microsoft component, a very old scripting language. So it works only and only on Windows. So it means if you are using QTP, UFT, then you are restricted only to Windows. But if we talk about Selenium, then not just scripting language like Ruby, the scripting language, PHP, JavaScript, these are scripting language, but there are purely object-oriented languages like Java, Python, C# are there. And if we talk about Java specifically, if you have ever installed Java, the very first message you're going to see that 3 billion devices runs on Java. So be it Linux, Mac, Windows, iOS, Android, any operating system you name, Java is supported. And if you are running your Selenium code in Java, then you can execute that code in any operating system and any browser you want. Because we never know that end user could be using Windows, it could be using Mac, could be using Firefox, could be using Chrome. So we need to make sure that our product is tested, fully tested on all major operating systems, all major platforms, all major browsers. So with Selenium, you can execute your code on all major browsers and all major platforms. So this is one of the best things to use Selenium, right? And then we have also seen, what all components are there in Selenium, like IDE is there. RC was there with the initial version, Selenium 1.0, and it went up till 2.0. So if I talk about components, it is like IDE, RC, and Grid 1 was with version 1, then IDE, RC, and then WebDriver and Grid 2, then IDE, no RC, and Grid 3. And then here, same, we have IDE, WebDriver, and Grid. But what is the difference in all these four versions? So the difference is the architecture. So there's a complete different architecture in 1.0, complete different architecture in 2.0, and then 3.0, and then 4.0. So we'll be discussing about the architecture as well. But before that, let us see these components. Let us see what is the difference in these components. If I talk about IDE, this is like every automation tool has some record and play functionality. So this is also a record and play plugin. Initially, when it was designed, it was available for Firefox only. Same way in 2.0 as well, it was available for Firefox. In 3.0, they implemented it for Firefox and later on added it for Chrome as well. And now you'll find it in Firefox and Chrome, both major browsers. This plugin is available. So I'll show it to you on Chrome. Configuring IDE is very easy. You can even do it from selenium.dev website. You go over here, just go down, you can see these components are here, ID, WebDriver, grid. Only these three components are there now. Go to read more, and for Chrome, for Firefox, you can simply click on Chrome download, and this is an extension. So I've already added. If you have not added it, you're gonna see an install option, and then it gets added to your Chrome like this. So this is Selenium IDE. And this is just a record and play plugin. As in, if I click on, let's say, record a new test in a new project. So I'm going to give the project name as, let's say, Selenium test, and click on OK. And here I'll be giving the URL as http google.com and click on start recording. As soon as I click on this, see a browser launches, and over here you can see it is written Selenium IDE is recording. So now if I perform some action over here, I'll say Selenium, and then I'll click on this, and then I'll click on this. And if I go back to this ID, you can see all the actions, all steps are being recorded over here. And then if I close this, I'll give this test name as Selenium Google test and click on OK. And then what I can do, I can again run this test. If I click on this, so all the actions will be performed again. And see, all the actions are successfully executed. So this is what is called as a record and play. Normally, what people do after doing this record and play, see all steps are successfully executed. So what they do is, just a moment. So they generally, if you click on test and click over here and click on export, so you can export this record and play script in multiple languages as well, whichever language that you want to use Selenium with. Let's say we are using it with Java. So if I click on export, so over here, Selenium Google test Java file will be downloaded. If I click on save, you can see a Java file is downloaded. And if I open this, I'll just, what we generally do, we copy this and we go to Eclipse and we paste it over here. So like in our project, we have this class, I can paste this particular class as well. And if you open this, you'll see there's a similar code over here. See, this is all the code which is auto-generated. You can see a code driver.get. And if you remember in the last session when we started, we did the same stuff, driver.get, right? If I write one more line of code, something like driver.find element by dot name. Don't worry about what code I'm writing right now. We'll be learning this in the Selenium session once we get started. And I'll say hello Selenium. And then I'll save this and let me comment out this. So what happens, it is going to launch the browser and then it will navigate to Google. And then it types hello Selenium. And if you look at the syntax that I've written right now, this is the same syntax we got from record and play. See, driver.find element by .name queue .send key Selenium. If I copy this and paste it over here, you will see that this is the same code that I got from record and play, right? So writing Selenium code is not at all complex, that you need to be dependent on the record and play feature. right? Because see, the last time, I mean, in the last class, the very first class, I told you that if we talk about these components of Selenium, that is IDE, RC, WebDriver, Grid, these plays just 25% role in your entire automation project. Why 25%? Because what we are doing with Selenium, we are launching browser, we are navigating to the website, we are typing something, we are clicking something, we are just performing action on the web page. We have performed, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 actions. And these 6 actions could be, this could be one of the test case: verify user is able to navigate to google.com, verify user is able to get the title of the page, verify user is able to type in the input field and enter the value as hello Selenium. So there could be 3, 4 test cases over here. But is it telling us after the execution how many test cases are passed, how many are failed? That is not the task of Selenium. Selenium will not tell how many test cases are passed, how many are failed. This is like in case we are doing manual testing, at the end we get the same result, right? Because we are manually tracking everything, how many test cases are passed, how many are failed, because we need to report it at the end. Like we executed 100 test cases, out of that 10 failed. And what all failed, we have mentioned steps to repro and all the error messages, and we have taken a screenshot for that particular bug, right? This is what we do in manual, and this is what we expect from the automation as well. In automation, we are actually automating our manual test cases itself, so that whenever next time, if there are bug fixes and we need to do regression, then we again need not to execute all the 100 test cases manually. We just run our automation script and automatically it is going to execute all 100 test cases, right? So this is what the benefit of automation. But at the end, we need to know, like we have executed 100 test cases and out of that, how many are getting passed, how many are getting failed. So Selenium will not going to report that. Selenium is not going to convert this code into test cases or test suite. That is a task of your TestNG framework or the JUnit framework. So initially in the market, there is JUnit. I mean, people, they with automation as well, they use JUnit. With development, still we are using JUnit as a framework to do unit testing on the code that developer write. And in automation as well, we use JUnit. But now JUnit is very rarely used in automation because we have an enhanced framework with many additional features, which is a requirement of automation, maybe not a requirement of developer. That is the reason developers are still using JUnit, but in automation, we use TestNG. TestNG, JUnit, both are similar, just that TestNG has some additional functionality in it. So this TestNG will gonna convert your existing code into test cases or test suite, and then will report failures and pass. So this is done with the help of TestNG integration. And what is TestNG? We have seen TestNG is nothing, it's just a jar file. These are the jars we've added for TestNG. Like Selenium is a jar, TestNG is also a jar. So in the same project, I've added one jar of Selenium and a couple of jars of TestNG. Now, after this, if you look over here, these are the hard-coded stuff, right? This is my test data that I've entered. So at times, if I'm automating a login window, I'll enter username, I'll enter password, right? If I hard code my username and password over here, let's say this is my username and then this is my password, and I'm entering this in the login window. I may need to log in. I may need to check that login window with hundreds of users. So what I'll do? Will I gonna keep all 100 users data over here? This is very difficult to manage. So what we do, generally we manage the test data in the Excel file. And now we need to do reading from Excel and then provide it to the website. So reading, writing from Excel is not a task of Selenium. For that, there's a different API called as POI API. POI is provided by Apache. So if you go to, let's say, there is one centralized repository called as Maven repository. So here you'll find all the APIs, all the Java APIs, all the Java projects. Let's say if you want to search for Selenium, you'll see Selenium project as well over here. So all these projects, they have, you can say, checked in their dependency, their jar files over here. So if you want to download 4.5, you click over here, you click on jar, you're gonna get latest Selenium 4.5 jar. You want to download any previous version of jar, you can see starting 3, 2, since 2.0. 2.0 was launched in July 14, 2011. So you can download any of these versions and any project. If you want to download TestNG, simply type TestNG. You'll get this TestNG project over here. And see, TestNG is a testing framework inspired by JUnit, right? So you can download the TestNG jars from here. You want to do Excel reading writing? Type POI. This is Apache POI, Java API to access Microsoft format files. Click over here, go over here, and download the jar file. See, you got the jar file, POI 5.2.3, the latest version. And now if I want to do Excel reading and writing, I can just right click on my project, go to build path, like the way I added Selenium jar. I just need to click on external archives, and here I'll be adding this POI jar file. Now, what this POI jar file contains? Same thing that Selenium contains. Selenium contains classes, functions, methods, right? But using the classes of Selenium, I can automate my website. Now, using the classes of POI, I can do reading and writing from Excel, right? So both are Java projects only, but provided by different vendors. This is by Apache, and this is by Selenium.dev, all right? So same way, now let's say I want to read the data not from Excel, from database. So I need to perform JDBC connection, and all your vendors like SQL, MySQL, they provide their own APIs. So you go over here, click on this, download the jar file, see MySQL connector, and now add the jar file in the same way. So one by one, you will be adding all the jar files for the stuff that you need to integrate in your project.
Rahul, I have a question. So for this jar file, should we make sure, can we download the latest, or is there like
mostly 90% of the time you'll be downloading the latest version only, or the stable version, latest or the stable, right? So I'll tell you which version that once we start using them, I'll tell you which version.
Yeah. Okay, sure. Thank you.
Right. So now you can see, and you'll find like all these jars have different versions. And their version also keeps on updating every now and then. See, May 10, 2021, then July, then October, new version comes into the market. And the latest one came in July 25. And same way, if we were talking about Selenium version also keeps on changing very frequently. See, 4.3, 4.2, 4.2, 4.1, 4.1, right? And see how frequently they're changing. In just months' time, they are adding new versions. This is same like your development, in case you have seen how your development team, they developed a product, and they develops a product, and they, whatever code that they write, at the end, they check in their code. So they check in the code, they generate a build, and then you perform testing on that build, right? So when they check in the code, there is some version that is generated. So let's say you're working on some XYZ project. So now there are some new features added to that project. So maybe the initial version of the project is 1.0. Then some new items added. The development team, when they checked in the final code to staging, they have changed the version to 1.1. And then you perform the final testing on it, and it is released on production. So the official version is announced as 1.1. And then again, some bugs were found, and now development team is again fixing it, maybe adding some more functionality, because in Agile, requirements keeps on changing every now and then. And then again, they have done all the fixes and development, and they release the new version that is 1.2. So this is the same thing happens with Selenium. Selenium is also a development project, right? Although we are using it for automation testing, but it is a development project. So they are developing Selenium, they're adding code, they're adding new functionality, and they're changing versions like this. So they started with initially 1.0, then 2.0 over here, you'll find 2.0 over here, then 3, then 4. So whenever, let's say, there is a major change in the architecture, so what we do, we change version 1 to version 2. And then the 2 release starts. And then all of a sudden, they thought of doing a big change in the project. They changed the technology, they changed the architecture. So from 2, they bring the 3. And then 3 release runs. And same thing happens with the 4. When there is another major update, other major change in the technology, in the architecture, then the next version comes. So this life cycle keeps on going. This is the same process that happens in every software development life cycle, right? So we need to make sure whenever the version is updated, we should try to download the latest version and should try to work with the latest version only, right? And this is a very important concept. We're going to have a detailed discussion about this because, see, we are not just using Selenium in our project. We are using many other jar files. At times, you'll see hundreds of such jar files are added in a project because you're not just reading Excel file, you're not just connecting to database, you're using TestNG as well. And not only this, let's say if you have written, automated your complete website, and when you start running the code, it may gonna take, let's say, 1 to 2 hours to complete the entire test execution. So for that 2 hours, are you going to sit in front of your laptop and we're gonna identify if all the actions are being performed on the website or not? If you are checking each and everything at the time of execution, then it's better to do it manually. Then what is the purpose of automation? But how will you make sure whether automation, that code that you have written, have executed each and everything? I've clicked on the link, entered the username, entered password, each and every action. If you have automated 1,000 steps, and all the 1,000 steps are successfully executed or not. So we will be maintaining these things in some log file. That log file should have all the current time stamping and everything done. Something like, if I show you a log file, let's say I go to one of the project, okay, any project I'll pick up and show you how the logs looks like. This is how the logs looks like. So these are the information logs. See, like at this date, this time, this minute, this second, test suite started, and then some property files loaded. Then it clicked on this element. Then we were locating this element, clicking on this button, then typing in the first name. We have entered this value, typing in the last name, entered this value. And then you can see multiple set of users data is being entered. And for every data, there's a timestamp automatically being captured. So these are the logs that are generated. So for your entire 2-hour execution, you will see a big log file is generated, which is telling you each and everything. And whenever, if any error occurred or if any bug found, then you can report the detailed error over here as well. So this generation or maintaining of log file is not a task of Selenium. This is done by another API, which is called as log4j. And what is this? This is another jar file, right? So this is also a jar file. 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 And like we talk about check-in and check-out of the code. See, we are also writing code. At the end, whatever the code that we write, we as an automation test engineer, we have to check in the code as well to some centralized repository. So that if let's say I've automated my entire project and all of a sudden my laptop crashes. So the complete code is going to go with that crash. We'll be maintaining it to some centralized repository, which is called as there are some companies, they use their internal repository. It could be SVN as well. There are many companies who are using GitHub, because GitHub is on a cloud based. So from anywhere, from any location of the world, you can access the code, you can download that code. If someone new joins in the organization, he want to see what is going inside the project, then you just give him a URL, he can go to that GitHub repository and download that particular code and then can use it. So that is where you maintain your version history of your project, right? So that's what your GitHub is. And then if we talk about there are other couple things that we've discussed about what is Maven, what is Jenkins, TestNG we have seen, then parallel test execution. These things we'll be studying about it in some time. You'll be very much familiar with what Maven is, what Jenkins is. Jenkins is something which is it provides you a platform where you can implement CI, CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous deployment. So this is something, let's say, let's suppose the code that I'm executing over here, I'm executing it with the help of Eclipse. I'm clicking on run button, then the website launches and all the action is happening. But instead of using Eclipse, I can also run the code from command prompt. Right? How, let's say if I go to any previous project of mine, if I go over here, I'll simply say MV and test. And you're gonna see the test case will automatically gonna get started from this command prompt. I need not to use any Eclipse. It is going to launch the browser. See, browser launches. And now the test execution, the data is being read from Excel sheet. Same test case and multiple set of data is being executed. And then the test execution completed, right? So which utility is executing this code? We are not using Eclipse, right? I can do something like this. Instead of opening a command prompt, I can simply double click on this. And then also you'll see the same test will be executed just by double clicking on. There is something called as a batch execution. We have created a batch file. But what utility I have used, which is building my project, compiling the code, and then running it. So normally, sorry?
Maven.
Exactly. So Maven is one of the build tool. It is not just a build tool, it is a dependency management tool as well. So what is dependency management? That we'll be looking at it soon, but this is what the purpose of a build tool or a dependency management tool. Now, this thing I have executed at my end. Maybe you want to check this as well if everything is working fine or not. Maybe my client want to execute everything. He want to see whether everything is running fine or not. So what I'll do, either I should give him I should go ahead and install Java, Eclipse, Maven, and complete on his machine. And then I download this project on his machine and build it, and then I'll show it. But client is at some different location. Let's say client is sitting in US, I'm sitting in India. But clients still want to execute the code and want to see how the execution is going on, how many test cases are getting passed, test cases are getting failed. So how will he do that? Client is a non-technical person. I mean, I cannot go ahead and install all these things on his machine.
We'll share GitHub repository link and integrate Jenkins will be there for this.
Exactly. So for that purpose, we'll be giving him a UI A UI will gonna look something like this. Let me see if I can show it to you practically right now. So we'll be doing something like, or maybe I'll gonna execute this. So a UI will gonna launch client, just need to enter a username and password to this UI. It looks something like this. So right now it is on my local machine, but normally in an organization, this is set up by some DevOps person, and this is mapped with some DNS entry. So where it could be like com.in jenkins.infosys.com, something like that, right? And then client will be entering his username and password and will be clicking on sign in. And then here, once he gets to the dashboard, should be able to see your projects. Maybe you have one BVT suite created, you have one regression suite created, you have some functional suite created, right? So whichever client wants to run, he simply need to click on this button, and you can see a build is triggered. And let's see what is going inside this build. And this is the same thing. Jenkins is giving a call to Maven, see, executing Maven. Whatever that we were doing in command prompt, same thing is happening on this UI. And see, running test suite. And in some time, you should be able to see a browser will launch. See, a browser is launched. And same action is happening again. So client will be able to execute your code, should be able to like see what all logs if he is a little bit technical, he should be able to read the logs over here. If not, then we'll be generating some interactive reports. So see, test 4.0 failed, and see some archiving HTML reports. So there are some reports that are also generated. Let's see what those reports are. If you click on this, you see something called as extent report. Now, this extent report is not provided by Jenkins. It is not provided by TestNG. It is not provided by Selenium. This is again a third-party utility. In order to generate reports, we need to download some other jar files. So they are also available in Maven repository. If you type extent reports, you should be able to see extent report library and can download the latest jar file from here. And then if you click on extent report, should be able to see your reports over here with complete logs. So with the timestamp, clicking on this button, locating this element, this test pass, then clicking on element, add customer button, typing in first name, this value, last name, this value, postcode, and then this test pass. And if any test fails, you may gonna see a screenshot as well over here. Let's see if I have added some here or not. No, this one is not failed. Let me see if I can show you some failed script as well. All are passing. Just give me a moment. So we can attach screenshot, we can attach logs as well, not just screenshots. So here we got some failures, I guess. So many reports are there. See, this is a screenshot of failure that you can attach it over here. Whichever test fails, we're gonna have the screenshot. You can add detailed logs as well over here, right? We'll be studying all these things. But yes, this is not done by Selenium. The Jenkins is not provided by Selenium, right? So we'll be learning all these things practically. We'll be doing the reporting part as well. Extent reports will also be covered. Right, so that is what, in case you are using this record and play ID, can you add these things to a record and play utility? You cannot. For all these things, there is a coding library that is required. And initially, when Selenium 1 version was started, the coding library was available through RC, which we also call it as remote control. So this remote control was the initial library available with, started when Selenium started, it was started with 1.0 version. And it was a very small library. There was only one major class at that point of time they created called as default Selenium. And all the methods to automate your website were kept inside this class. So methods like one of the method was start. In case you want to launch your browser, just you need to call this start method. Then the method open. You want to navigate to a website, call open. You want to perform click, a method is click. You want to perform type, a method is type. You want to get title of the page, method is get title. You want to close the browser, the method is close. It was very simple to work on Selenium RC. Even if you're not good in coding, in order to call these methods, just we need to know how to call them by creating object of this class. How? By saying default Selenium. Object reference could be anything, ABCD. We generally give it a meaningful name, Selenium equal to new default Selenium. That's it. We have created an object of the class. And how to call the method? Selenium.start. That's it. If you run this code, it is going to launch a browser. Then you want to navigate to a website, selenium.open, provide the URL, http google.com. It will navigate to google.com. Then you'll say selenium.get title. It will give you the title of the page. You want to click on any link, selenium.click. You want to type in the input box, selenium.type. Once you're done, close the browser, selenium.close. That's it. This was very simple coding. As a tester, we just need to write this much code to automate the website. We are not worried about what is written inside start method, what is written inside open method. Maybe 100 lines of code was there, but we are not developing Selenium. We were using it like this. So that is how the initial Selenium library started. The coding library, apart from the record and play, they created this library. But how this library, how this is just a simple Java code, how this code is communicating with my browser. It is launching a browser, it is performing action, it is doing all the other stuff like typing, clicking on the web page. How it is communicating with the browser? What is the mode of communication? What is written behind the architecture? So when Selenium 1.0 was started, the architecture, how this code is communicating with your browser is with the help of something called as JavaScript injection. JavaScript injection. Have you heard about this term JavaScript? I'm not saying, do you know JavaScript language? Language is a different stuff. But JavaScript, where JavaScript runs? Can anyone tell me where JavaScript runs?
Client side.
Client side. Client side as in the UI part, right?
Yeah, UI.
The front end, the browser, right? So this is your front end. In case I want to perform click over here, type over here, even if I don't use Selenium and I'm a JavaScript developer, I can write some code and I can perform click over here, I can perform type over here easily by executing JavaScript on the runtime, because JavaScript runs on the client end, on the front end. This is your client, the UI. JavaScript runs over here. And that is what they did in Selenium. So if I want to perform click using JavaScript, the code is little tricky for the scripting. It goes something like document dot, even if you Google around how to click using JavaScript, you get a similar code, document.get element by ID, something like this, and then you will say .click. So this is not the exact JavaScript, but this is how it's similar it looks like. So what they did, they wrapped this code into your click method. So ultimately, you are calling click, but what is getting executed is the JavaScript on your browser, right? This is at the API end. So you don't know whether what is there inside the click method. You're just calling it as a simple core Java method, selenium.click, and it is performing click on the button. But at the end, it is injecting JavaScript. And how this JavaScript injection was happening with the help of something called as Selenium standalone server, which is the same jar file which we downloaded right now. Right now, they have changed the name to Selenium server. But initially, if you look at some 2.53 jar file or even Selenium 3 jar file, this was named as Selenium standalone server. So this standalone server contains your JavaScript engine as well. So before we start running this code, we need to start a server on our machine. This was mandatory at the time of Selenium 1.0, when 1.0 architecture was there. When this server is started, this will allow JavaScript injection on the UI. If the server is not started and you try to run the code, you'll immediately gonna get exception. You'll immediately gonna get error that server is not started, the communication cannot be built up. So this was mandatory, and server starting was a very simple task. It was something like open up command prompt and type Java -jar Selenium standalone. I don't have any standalone, so let's try this server only. But if I press enter, this was the only command, Java -jar, and give the name of the jar file. If you press enter, this will start your Selenium server. But see, right now it is not getting started, because this thing is changed now. This is Selenium 4. So you can still start this jar file, but you need to add some another commands called as this, not this stand alone. But what it is doing, it is not starting your JavaScript injection. It is starting something called as, see, it says no driver found. What this driver is, again, there's a whole big story. This is actually starting your Selenium grid. So I'm starting it from a different location. If I started somewhere from here, where I have these executable files available, and if I start it from here, I need to give the same commands, Java -jar, and this, and then I'll say stand alone and press enter. Now this will work. But this is your Selenium grid, right? So what is grid? We'll come to this, but normally the same process we do, we start a server and then we run the code, and then the automation was possible. Without server, the JavaScript injection was not possible. And this was one of the biggest drawback at that point of time. Why? Because as I said, when Selenium was started, it was started in 2004, long time back. At that point of time, which was the majorly used browser? It was Internet Explorer, right? IE. IE was the highly used browser at that time. Still there are some few applications which are supported only and only on IE. They don't run on any other browsers. And if we talk about IE as a browser, at that point of time, it was a highly secured browser. When you execute your Selenium code on IE, immediately it throws an exception. It won't allow any execution of Selenium on IE. Why? Because Selenium, how it executes, it injects JavaScript. And IE, it does not allow JavaScript injection, due to the security reasons. Because as I said, where JavaScript runs, it runs on the client end. If I am a JavaScript developer, I can easily write a code that can fetch stored cookies from your browser, stored username, credentials, credit card information. Easily I can get it from this UI by just running a simple JavaScript on your browser. At times, in order to do some hacking as well, the JavaScripting is used. We can easily get information from your browser. So in order to block that, since IE is a highly secured browser, it does not allow any JavaScript injection. But then how people have used Selenium? Because Selenium, that point of time, they say that they support IE as a browser as well. So if you have ever seen Internet Explorer, so on IE, there is some settings. If I go to Internet Options, And if I go to security, if I remove all these enable protected modes, then I'll be able to run my Selenium RC code easily on this browser. But what happens is my website was also highly secured. It has got some SSL certificates in that. It was accessed via HTTPS on a secured layer. So if I remove these security parameters from IE, then what happens? I'll start getting these errors. So if SSL certificates are missing, SSL certificate error, you will gonna start seeing some errors like this. At times, if you navigate to any website, you get connection is not private or invalid certificate. Then you perform some additional things and then you are able to navigate to that website. Otherwise, you'll not be able to navigate to that website. So this is the same thing happened on IE. If we remove all the security parameters and my website is a highly secured website, then when I run my code through Selenium, I start getting these certificate errors. Because if website is not going to open, what will I automate? So this was one of the biggest drawbacks. Not only this, the library itself was very small. Like there was only one major class, default Selenium. And this class contains how many methods? 100, 200 methods, not more than that. Means to automate our entire test cases, we just have these 200 methods. And when we write test cases, we do a lot of permutation and combination. And it doesn't mean for every permutation combination, you'll find a method over here. So if the method is not there, how will you automate that test case? I got one of the test case to, let's say, print links from all, let's say, I want to print all the links from this page. And I want to find the count of all the links. I want to print text of all the links. There is no as such method in Selenium RC library to do that. And this is one of the 1,000 scenarios. There could be anything, any scenario that comes into your mind that you want to automate, and you'll not find that particular method functionality in default Selenium class. Then what will you do? You cannot automate that test case, right? Or else you will be creating that method. But we are not developer, right? We are not coming from Selenium project. We don't know in and outs of Selenium project, what they have developed. And why am I going to develop that functionality? I'm using Selenium for automation. So this was the biggest challenge that companies have faced while using Selenium very first version. And these challenges were actually recognized by one person in the year 2006. His name is Simon Stewart. He used to work as a lead developer with Google, where he started another project parallel to Selenium, which he named it as WebDriver. So WebDriver was officially started at Google. Many Google developers have contributed into the development of this project. And what he did, he realized all the shortcomings of Selenium RC, what all challenges were there, and he has actually overcome all these challenges in WebDriver.
Open source, sir.
And then what he did, this is again an open source project only, right? Not just Google developer, it's an open source. So many developers from Facebook, Adobe, big organization have contributed into the development of WebDriver. And later on, they merged this WebDriver with Selenium. So that is why we call it as Selenium WebDriver, or then he named the version as 2.0, Selenium 2, which was officially launched in July 2011. And this release went up to 2.53.1. Now, when companies were already using Selenium 1.0, RC they were already using, and many projects were automated as well using RC, although there were a lot of challenges, but still automation was done using Selenium. And all of a sudden, now they say that stop using Selenium 1.0, We have changed the architecture. Now you should move to Selenium 2.0. But the architecture is completely different. The classes are completely different. It means we have to rewrite the entire code that we have written for Selenium 1.0 in Selenium 2.0. So we have to start the project from scratch. We cannot use 1.0. So what they did in 2.0, they have kept both RC and WebDriver. They said, oh, that's okay. If you are still using RC, you can still use RC, but later on, slowly and slowly, you can migrate to WebDriver, but start using Selenium 2 architecture. So in Selenium 2, they have kept RC as well as WebDriver. But this RC was up till 2.44 version only. In 2.44, this got deprecated. So in case you are still using RC, you'll see all your classes with strike down. So this default Selenium, there's a strike. When you start using it, you'll see a strike coming along with it, which is telling that this class is deprecated. If you face any issues, we are not responsible for fixing any bugs using related to Selenium RC. We have already mentioned that you should now move to WebDriver, and we are not supporting RC anymore. And later on in Selenium 3, they have completely removed RC. Now everyone started working on a WebDriver, and this release went up till 3.141.59. And then Selenium 4 came into the market and started from 4.alpha version, then beta version, then we have 4.1, 4.2, now we have 4.5 version, which is the current version that companies are using. And that also contains your IDE and WebDriver and the grid 4 part. So this is about the version history. But how this challenge of JavaScript, I mean, like this was the biggest challenge in Selenium 1.0. How Simon Stewart overcome this challenge. So in the architecture of WebDriver, there is no JavaScript injection. So the very first thing he did, he removed JavaScript injection from the architecture. So whichever browsers were not supporting JavaScript, now you can easily execute the code on those browsers as well, because JavaScript is no more there in the architecture. So the other thing, what he did, it was Selenium RC was a very small library. In WebDriver, what he did, for every browser, he created a new class. If you want to work on Chrome, there's a class called as Chrome driver. If you want to work on IE, there's a specific class designed for Internet Explorer driver. If you want to work on Firefox, a class called as Firefox driver, right? For Safari, class called as Safari driver. For every browser, he has created different classes. Not just this, he has created a huge collection of library, each to support all feasible functionality. If you go to selenium.dev, you should be able to see what all classes are there in the Selenium project. If you go to download, and over here, just go a little down, you'll see Selenium WebDriver language bindings. If you go down, and all these languages are supported. See, Selenium, C#, Ruby, Python, JavaScript, Java. We are checking on Java right now. So click on API docs. And then you'll click on frames. And you can see huge list of classes, each to support every feasible functionality on a web. This is a very huge project. Even if you see, we have used Chrome driver class, you'll find it over here. So this is Chrome driver. If you click on it, you'll see class Chrome driver, right? Chrome driver, Firefox driver, all the classes you're going to find over here. So we'll be going through this Java. This is called as a Java document. This is the only guide of Selenium. Anything you need to do in Selenium, you'll be taking a reference of this library. And how to read this Java document, this is what we're gonna study in our lectures, right? So once we start with WebDriver, we're gonna see how to read these classes and how to get the methods, functionality from these classes. That is how we'll be working. But don't worry about it. This is very simple to study. Once we start taking a look at the architecture of WebDriver, you should be able to understand this Java document easily. So that is what they did. They have created a huge collection of library. They removed JavaScript injection. And if they have removed JavaScript injection, then still this is a Java code only. These are Java classes only. How they are communicating with the browser? Initially, the mode of communication was JavaScript injection. Now JavaScript injection is not there in the architecture. Then how these classes are communicating with their browser? How Chrome driver is communicating with Chrome browser, performing action on Chrome browser? These classes are directly interacting with the native APIs of their browsers using something called as JSON wire protocol, which is nothing that exposes your REST API itself. Some HTTP methods are there. In case if you have done like any testing using Postman on APIs, on web services, even manual testing, then you must be familiar with some HTTP methods like put is there, get is there, right? Post is there. So there are a number of methods are there. So these methods are being executed and they are communicating. Let me show you the architecture from this diagram. So this is like when Selenium 1 was started in 2004, this was the architecture. So this is your Java client. Client as in your Java code, the code that we are writing. That let's assume this is Eclipse. Eclipse is sending the request to your remote server. Server is this that we have started over here. When you run the code, it sends the request over here. And then this will inject JavaScript on your browser. These are your browsers. And then your application and the test, that is your website, will be automated. This was the architecture initially. For this, you need to start this particular server. This server has to be started. Right? If the server is not there, you cannot perform any connection with your browser. So then after that, the next architecture, let me clear this. The next architecture that comes is for Selenium 2. This release went up till 2.53.1 and it was launched on 14 July 2011, right? So here, like when you start, when we started with Selenium 2.0, then Firefox, they have kept a native support for Firefox. For Firefox was the major browser where the testing was done, the development of Selenium was done, like by taking this Firefox browser as a native support. Means in case you want to communicate with the Firefox browser, just create an object of Firefox driver class and you can directly perform a connection with Firefox. There is no additional API that is required for Firefox. Like if you know that these days, in case you're doing automation with Selenium, what we did yesterday, we added a file called as Chrome driver exe. I told you that I'll be telling you about this file later on, right? So this we added for Chrome exe. If I use Firefox driver and I use Selenium 2 version, I need not to add any exe file. I can directly execute things on Firefox. But if I want to use Chrome, I need this exe. If I want to run things on IE, I need the exe which is provided by Internet Explorer. This Chrome driver exe is not provided by Selenium. This is provided by the developer of Chrome, the company who owns Chrome, that is Google itself. So this is given by Google itself. Same way, if you want to run your things on Firefox now, there's a class called as Firefox driver. And in latest, after Selenium 3, I mean, after Selenium 2, Selenium 3.0 version, Selenium 4.0 version, the native support of Firefox is not there. Here you need to download something called as geckodriver.exe, which is provided by the owner of Firefox. And who is that? Mozilla, right? So we need to get this from Mozilla. Now, why this is required? Again, let us look at the architecture. So see, forget about Firefox for the timing. This was in 2.0 that the native support was there. But in order to automate things on Chrome, on IE, on different other browsers, you need their executables available. Their executables are provided by the browser vendor itself. So why these executables are required? See, we are using Java. This is our Selenium Java code. This is the code that we have written. When we run this code, this sends a request in a form of HTTP methods, in a form of, you can say in a form of REST API. Your HTTP methods like get, call, post call, put call, these requests are being sent. And these are processed with the help of something called as JSON wire protocol. So if we don't go very technical at this moment, you can just assume like you are running your Java code. There's a request sent via some channel. That channel is named as JSON wire protocol. And this further sends the request to your browser executable, which is provided by your browser vendors. So if you want to execute anything on Chrome, you are running the code, that is, you are running Chrome driver equal to new Chrome driver. As soon as you run it, there is a request that is sent via JSON wire protocol to this Chrome driver exe. That is the reason we have added Chrome driver exe over here. If I don't add this Chrome driver exe, see, let's say if I delete it, if I delete this from here. Okay, right now it won't allow me to delete it because when you run your Selenium code and you don't quit the driver, so you may gonna see some Chrome driver sessions are maintained over here. You may need to terminate them manually. So see, these are the Chrome driver sessions. Let me end this. And this as well. And now I can delete this Chrome driver exe. See, now I've deleted Chrome driver exe. Now it's just a simple Java code. If I run this, immediately I'm gonna get exception. No browser launched. So what it is saying, some illegal state exception, and it is asking some driver executable path is missing. For which driver? Chrome driver. So it is looking for some Chrome driver file. And this Chrome driver file is not provided by Selenium. This is provided by Google. So we need to go to their website, search for this Chrome driver file, and we need to download it. Now you need not to go to different websites. Like for Firefox, you will be navigating to Mozilla website and then checking for it. You need not to worry about it because all these links, they have directly given it on the Selenium website itself. So if you go to selenium.dev, go to download, and here you have downloaded the Selenium jar. If you go down, you will see something called as platform supported by Selenium and the browsers. If you click on this, you can see Firefox, Gecko driver is implemented and supported by Mozilla. IE, it's supported by Microsoft. Safari, it's by Apple. Chrome is by some Chromium project, right? You go to documentation, click on this, you'll be navigating to the Chromium website, not on the Selenium website. And here you will be downloading this. Yesterday we downloaded this, right? If you remember, click on this, download based on your Mac, Linux, and Windows. Click on this, you've already downloaded it, and then you're gonna see it over here. And then I've extracted this. After extracting, we got a folder. This is the one. This is the exe file. And what I did, I just copied this and I pasted it over here inside my project, pasted. So when I add this, and now if I run this, you'll see that this time the browser is launching and navigation is happening, typing is happening, all the things are happening fine, right? So that is what how the communication is built. This is sending the request to this Chrome driver exe, and Chrome driver exe is communicating with your browser, right? Again, let us take a look at the picture. Java is your cron driver. Via JSON via protocol, this is a protocol via HTTP. The request is sent to the browser drivers, and then further browser driver executed on the real browser. And same architecture is there in Selenium 3 as well. Just that in Selenium 3, there is no native support of Firefox. So here you're going to find Firefox driver as well. That is Gecko driver. So this native support was of Firefox was up till Selenium 2 only. And when the next release came, Selenium 3 came into the market with more documentation, W3C guidelines, implementation, and all this stuff. Then you will not see that Firefox direct support, native support. In order to work on Firefox as well, you need that Gecko driver exe. That is how the architecture was developed. Do we need to manually kill Chrome session when we are not closing the browser? Yes, in case you're not closing the browser, then you need to go to Task Manager and kill the session. Right? Otherwise, if you reboot, it will automatically gonna get killed. This is just because I need to delete it, and it won't allow me to delete it if I don't kill the session. Otherwise, if I again run it, I'm not closing the browser right now. It won't affect anything on my code. It will again, if I run this again, the code will be executed same way like I did it. Right? But yes, it is better to close the session. Otherwise, it will you'll see a lot of sessions being maintained. At times, if you do execution for 50 times, you'll see 50 sessions are maintained. Right? Okay. Why cannot IDE be used for coding purpose in testing? Why it cannot be integrated with jars? Because see, IDE is just a small plugin. It is not a very huge platform where we can do scripting and coding and where we can do all the other integrations. IDE is a very, very small tool, very, very small plugin. So if you look over here, there are no much functionality available. See, you're not going to see much options over here. Right? No further menus where you may see that Jenkins option is there, Git option is there. You're not going to see all those things in IDE. It's a very small record and play plugin, and no one used this plugin in the industry. This is just for for the beginners. If we are getting started, if we want to see how the record and play works, we can still use it. But I don't recommend you to look at IDE. I want you to focus only and only on the coding part, because majorly things are achieved by coding. Because see, as I said, anything that is feasible in Java, we can achieve that thing using Selenium. And where the Java code is written, it is written in Eclipse, it is written in IntelliJ, right? So in case I want to generate logs, how will this IDE support it? Because it's a tool, right? The tool contains limited functionality. This is a very small tool, a very small plugin. How many functionality this plugin have? Can be integrated with some like generating extent report. Now, extent report is provided by a third party. I want to send out automated emails. That is done using some Java API. How will I integrate that with this plugin? So that will be done and handled only programmatically way only. Right? So for
Rahul, thing is, actually, I was asking, like you told us that when this can be imported in the form of Java and we can upload this in Eclipse. So suppose I have one end-to-end functionality where I have that process of opening some application and accessing something. If I run that in IDE record and play, then export it in Java as a Java and put it in Eclipse. So can't it be integrated in the Eclipse where it is now in the form of Java
that
code?
is what I'm saying. With Selenium IDE, you're only going to get the Selenium code. You'll not get a code for Excel reading. You'll not get a code for generating extent report. You can get Selenium script. You can add those scripts over here and then add another code for reading Excel generating report.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
But if you have to do that thing, why you are just generating few lines of code using record and play. For other integration, you may need to line hundreds of lines of code. That thing will not be done with any record and play. And Selenium code is not at all complex that you are dependent on record and play. See, get title, see, very straightforward method. Get, very straightforward method. You may find this little complex because you may not have studied this. If you study this, this is very simple. So that is what we'll be gaining in the training. Once we start working on Selenium, you'll feel it very easy. Once you start writing this code with your hand, you'll be very much comfortable in using it. Right? Yeah, RPA is again a different tool. RPA can it cannot replace automation testing, but yes, RPA is a huge tool. It can automate your desktop part as well. It can automate your web-based part as well, and it contains so many features. Right? We have RPA UIPath, Blue Prism, and it has got licensed versions as well. So not everything is supported in like the free version. So company has to purchase the license as well. But when everything is available in an open source library, and all the things can also be integrated, that anything that is feasible in Java language, in Python language, in C# language, anything that is feasible in these languages, we can easily integrate it with Selenium. Then why we are restricted to one tool? Right? RPA is also a tool. It provides you features where you can read PDF file, you can manipulate Excel file, manipulate Notepad file, do some execution on browser as well, but it is not going to replace Selenium. Right? Selenium, anything feasible in any language can be integrated with Selenium. So you can imagine, I mean, in Java, we can, anything that we can think, we can do it in Java. We can do it in any programming language. So all those things you can integrate with your automation project as well. But it doesn't mean all those things are available in RPA as well, right? So that is what the benefit of using Selenium. Okay, so that's what the architecture of Selenium 3, and then this is now official Selenium 4.0 version, where you don't have any JSON wire protocol. And Selenium 4 is fully W3C compliance. With this JSON wire protocol, there was some encoding and decoding was done while sending the request to the browser executable. And at times it happens like when the things are encoded and decoded over the HTTP, at times some request, like you may gonna see some flaky test. There was initially they were saying that, okay, this code is absolutely working fine on Firefox, but when I execute this on Chrome, it is not fully working. So these were some of the challenges that were faced in previous version of Selenium. And most of the challenges were due to this JSON wire protocol, where when a request is sent, it is first encoded, then decoded, and then sent to your browsers. And then the response is received back. So that is where, like, in order to more enhance this framework, to enhance the communication, they have removed the JSON wire protocol, and they have implemented something called as W3C. W3C is something like World Wide Web Consortium, some guidelines, some compliance, which all major projects are following. Even if we talk about Firefox, Chrome, Safari, these are the browsers which are used everywhere in the industry. So they are fully W3C compliance. And same way, if we talk about Selenium, Selenium is these days almost, used in almost where we talk about automation, we see Selenium. So many big giants like even Adobe, even Microsoft as well, even Google as well is using Selenium. So this project should be fully W3C compliance. And if both are language bindings, browser executable, are W3C compliance, then we can make a direct connection over here. So directly we can send a request to the browser executable and it executes it on browser. So this is more robust. Right. But this is like, This is like a backend architecture. Guys, there's a background noise. Please put yourself on mute. Just right. So this is like a backend architecture. Right now, we need not to go very in depth of this architecture, but this is someone, if someone asks you in interviews, okay, what is the difference in Selenium 2, Selenium 3, Selenium 4, then you must be familiar with the version history of this project. You must be familiar with how this name Selenium, like how they've kept this Selenium name as an antidote to Mercury when it was started. And then how this WebDriver came into the picture. So you must be clear with a brief history of this project before you get started with this project. But this is the only theory part. I mean, in upcoming sessions, we are not going to cover any theory. All the things will be practical, covered on the website itself, because in automation, we don't have any theory, right? It just, we're going to launch the browser, we'll start hitting the elements. We'll try to hit each and every feasible element of the web, on the web, be it any complex element, any dynamic element. We'll be learning all the strategies of selectors or locators called as XPath, called as CSS. These two are very, very important locators. So we can call them as languages as well. So these are very widely used, not just with Selenium, with any automation tool related to Selenium that you may have heard about, Cypress, Protractor, Playwright. So everywhere you use these XPath CSS, and we'll be learning these things in depth. Right, so let me show you the course content now. So this is the entire syllabus. So where will be, like, we have seen a brief history, we have seen something on IDE as well, but we are not going to focus on IDE. And then we'll be getting started with the latest version itself of Selenium. And then first, you guys will be going through the complete core Java topics, which is going to cover in 12 sessions, around 6 weeks it's going to take for core Java. And then we'll start with Selenium 4. We'll be seeing all the latest features of Selenium 4. We'll be working with multiple browsers and gonna look at web elements, how to find, locate different web elements, finding it through XPath, through CSS. Then there are a lot of the huge list of topics that will be dealing with synchronization issue, weight, capturing screenshot, finding links, dealing with buttons, checkboxes, drop downs. And then this XPath CSS will be covering, we'll be seeing the latest features which were not there in Selenium 3, which is related to, let's say, handling SSL certificates, then changing the time zone. Changing time zone is something like, right now, let's say I'm in India. I want to see how my website shows up when it is opened in, let's say, in UK, London. So I can change my current time zone on the runtime as well. I can change my browser size to look like an iPhone 11, and I want to see how my application looks like when it runs on iPhone 11. So these are some of the things. Then we'll be learning TestNG framework in depth. We'll be doing all these integrations like extend report, JDBC, POI, log4j. And then we'll also be working with some of the DevOps tools like Dockers is there. We'll be doing Jenkins, and then we'll be integrating it with AWS, Amazon Web Services to the cloud, and we'll be running our test on cloud as well. And then we'll be covering 2 live projects in these live sessions, one using a hybrid that is data plus keyword driven framework, and one using page objects plus page factory. So these are the 2 frameworks we'll be designing from the scratch. And once we are done with these 2 frameworks, then you will be following the course of Automation Architect and can go through 7 more live projects from there. So these are the things that we are going to cover in next 3.5 months. Right? So that's about the course content. And the next thing, like we have seen, the prerequisite to get started is you just need to have Java available as in the JDK, and best recommended is JDK 1.8. Then you need to have Eclipse IDE. IDE is not Selenium IDE, it's an integrated development environment. And then you need to have Selenium Chart. This is the only prerequisite to get started with Selenium. And there are no license required for it. Right? So now let us come back over here. We have discussed IDE, we have discussed RC and WebDriver. WebDriver is again a coding library. So these are the part of WebDriver. And the last component is grid. Now, what is grid? Can anyone tell me what is grid?
So this is the grid used for executing the script for virtual objects. So on different browsers, and to kind of performance testing, we can done that the same script run simultaneously for 2-3 objects or 2-3 users or an n number of users, and we can calculate that how it performs on different browsers. So if that website hits simultaneously from n number of user, like 2500 is hitting on browser on Firefox or Chrome IE simultaneously. So how the website performs.
See, grid is not for performance testing, the very first thing. You can make a use of grid to execute the scenario that you just discussed. But grid is something which is not going to do any performance testing on your script, right? Grid is not even for parallel test execution. If let's say there are 100 tests, and if I divide it in the batch of 10, and I want to run 10 tests parallel, maybe 100, if I just execute 10 tests, it takes 10 minutes of time to execute. And if I execute all these 10 test cases parallelly, then in 1 minute, I'll be able to execute it, right? It will save my time. So whether the test has to be executed in a sequence or parallel, this grid is not going to decide it. This is the task of TestNG framework. So TestNG because TestNG is the one which is creating test cases. So TestNG is managing the test cases to run in a parallel order or sequential order. Grid is just for distributing these test cases on remote machine. These remote machine could be a physical machine, it could be a virtual machine, or it could be a machine that is on your cloud network, that is AWS, it could be Google Cloud, it could be Azure Cloud, which is by Microsoft, right? These are the three major vendors like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft who provide the cloud services, where we can create a machine on a cloud. It could be a Linux machine, Mac machine, Windows machine, and then we run the code from here, and the code is going to execute on that cloud machine. So grid is just for remote execution. It is something like in grid, we have nodes and a hub architecture. So this is hub is one machine. These are nodes, which are multiple machines. And this is your Java client, where you have kept your test cases. Now, there is something called as you create an object of Chrome driver, like we created Chrome driver equal to new Chrome driver. And what it did, it launched a Chrome browser. Instead of Chrome driver, if I do Firefox driver equal to new Firefox driver, what it is going to do, it is going to launch Firefox driver. That it is going to launch on my local machine. But now, if instead of Firefox driver, if I say a remote web driver, then what it will do, it will send the request to your hub. So this is your hub. And these are your nodes. This is your node 1. This is your node 2. And this is your node 3. And these nodes are connected to your hub. This could be physical machine as well, connected over an intranet. And this is running on one machine. Let's say we started Hub on Windows, and Node we have started it on a Linux machine where Firefox browser is there, a Mac machine where Chrome browser is there, another Windows machine where the Edge browser is there. So we'll be sending the request to Hub, and then Hub is the one who will be distributing the test case on multiple machines. In TestNG, if we have configured that test has to be executed in a sequence, then first test will be executed on node 1, then node 2, then node 3. If I configure it to run in parallel, then at the same time, all the test cases will be executed parallel on multiple machines. So that is what the task of grid. So we just started this jar file. This is what your grid jar file. If I go over here, the hub is already started. If I say localhost 4444, hub starts on this port. If I press enter, you will see Selenium grid is started. And we have a machine where 12 Chrome browsers are there, a machine where 12 instances of Firefox browser are there. So if I configure my code to run on grid, then this will send the request to this hub, and hub will distribute on this machine. Right now it is on one machine, but same setup, I can do it on cloud machine, on AWS as well.
What is the use of to run the code, run the test cases in the different machines?
See, this is something, I guess you guys have heard about something that is called as BCT testing, like browser compatibility testing.
That can run in the that single machine as well, if we
Absolutely.
have.
We can do it, right? Let's assume a scenario. I have 1,000 test cases to execute. Now I want to test those those test cases on Firefox, on Chrome, on Edge, on IE, on Safari, and even I want to test it on Linux, on Mac, on Windows, because end user could use anything.
Okay, that means we are reducing the time for
absolutely. So end user could use anything, and we want to make sure our product is fully tested on all operating system and all browser. If we do it manually, then let us assume how much time it is going to take. I need to allocate 7-8 resources. One will be working on Windows, one will be working on Linux, one will work on Mac, one will work on IE, one will work on Edge, one will work on Chrome and Firefox. And same 1,000 test cases, they are going to execute it manually on all machines.
Got it. Multiply into number of browsers.
Yeah, and grid is something
also required.
Absolutely. So grid is something where no physical interference is required. All the machines are connected. You just run the code, and the code will be executed on all the machines, all the different browsers, and same 1,000 test cases will be executed. And at the end of the day, you're going to get a report that everything is working fine or not.
Rahul, any agent, only the in the node 1, node 2, node 3, that there should be only the browser required only. Any agent
browser and the machine that is required.
That
you
is
can
only
configure it on one machine, or you can configure it on multiple machines as well.
How this will communicate to the we will configure the IP there.
Yeah, you need to configure it using hub and the node architecture.
Okay. There will be some configurations to define the IP.
This is done with the help of your single jar file that we downloaded. You need to start this jar file as a hub on one machine, then start the same jar file as a node on another machine, providing the IP of the hub. So node machine will be connected to the hub. So that is how all the node machines will be connected to the hub.
Got it.
Right.
Rahul, I have a question in here. So can our hub will be our Jenkins server as well?
Hub is, I mean, on like one machine, you can start Jenkins services as well as you can start your hub as well. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like this is my local machine. This is like a server as well, right? Here I have started Jenkins as well as I've started the Selenium hub.
Okay.
But they are started on a different port. So when I was accessing Jenkins, I was accessing it on localhost 8080, right? When I'm accessing grid, I'm accessing it on 4444. So the ports are different. So these two are services only. Right? So before going on to the next coding part or the technical part, I guess we should do up till here only for today. At least you guys must have got some idea that Selenium is not the only thing that will be going through in the training. We have to work on live projects. So in order to work on live projects, there are a lot of integrations that we need to do: Jenkins, Maven, Log4j, Excel, database. So these are the things that we need to learn as well. And these are not achieved through record and play. So in order to work on these, you need to be little good in the core Java concepts. Only the core Java concepts, no advanced Java is required. So this is going to be an incremental process, right? I know as a tester, if I have joined in manual testing, then I am little afraid with the coding part. But trust me, the coding is not a thing which is going to come in one day. This is an incremental process itself. You start step by step, right? Whatever that we are going to cover in Java, try to do those things first. Get yourself comfortable with basic if, else, loops, arrays, basic OOPS concepts, collections, and try doing practice as much as you can during the Java sessions. And once we reach to Selenium part, you'll be practically implementing those things in Selenium. And then you're going to see whenever you're automating a website, if any scenario comes, automatically it is going to come in your mind, okay, here I have to add a for loop. Here I need to use a list. Here I need to use basic if else or switch. So that is where when you practically start doing these things, automatically your programming base will gonna get developed. And once the base is developed, you'll never gonna forget these things. And then you'll never go back again to the core Java sessions, and then you'll again be repeating the sessions, because practically you have implemented it in Selenium. You know how to create an object of a class. You know how to call methods, right? You know what is this method chaining. Then why you'll be going back again to the programming part, and why you'll be again learning those concepts once the concepts are already developed. So till the time you don't practically use it, if you learn Java today, if you don't use it for next 6 months, you again have to learn it again, because you're going to forget what is inheritance, what is polymorphism, what is encapsulation. You're going to forget these things. So till now, you may have studied in your graduation in a more theoretically way. So now you are going to practically implement these things in Selenium. By just writing a couple of lines of code, you will see that a browser is getting launched, click, type, all the actions are getting performed, and you yourself will going to feel it very interesting. It's not as much boring. The programming could be boring, but automation is not boring. Right? So this is what, once your interest is developed, you'll be able to understand and work on these things, and then your programming base will be built up.
Rahul, one query. Generally the functional testing, now the Postman have a lot of functionality, and let's suppose we have a 1,000 of test cases for functional testing only, so we can perform through the Postman. So why we need a Selenium browser-based testing again?
Okay,
if everything is getting the output from the Postman, then why we go for Selenium? Because of a lot of codes, and we have to do and allocate some resources to do the coding for Selenium, and that functionality we can already test it through the Postman API.
Absolutely. See, what is Postman? Postman is also a tool, right?
Yeah.
Can you like when all your test cases in Postman are generated, can you show me some interactive report integration like extend report with that? Or maybe once your tests are generated, I want that automatically email should be sent out, and your test lead and everyone should come to know how many test cases are passed, how many are failed. Will that functionality?
That is the additional. There is some validations we can also perform, like
absolutely
output and everything, and response, the captures we can capture through Postman.
Now another thing, tell me, I'm automating a UI. Let's say it's an e-commerce application. Let's say Flipkart. So, every big application these days,
The
they have APIs.
cosmetic things which is over browser that we cannot perform.
No, I'm not just talking about cosmetic stuff. I'm saying that you just talked about API part. Like if we can automate the entire API functional base through Postman, what is the need of all these things? So that's what I'm clarifying, that if you have to automate a UI first, right? Let's say you have created UI automation cases, you have automated the front end of Flipkart. Now your company is asking that they have their APIs as well. And you need to integrate your APIs with the functional test. You need not to invest in any different tool. The framework that you have created in Java, where you're using Selenium, at the same moment, like when the test cases are running, you should run your API test as well in the same test suite. And now we have a mobile application as well. So Flipkart has their mobile application as well. So there are some mobile-based test cases as well. But again, I don't want you to invest in any third-party tool, because we are not going to buy any license for any tool to perform testing on mobile application. And we don't want to do manual testing on mobile application. We want to automate that mobile part as well. So the framework that you have created over here, you have used Selenium for UI automation. You will add one more jar file that is called as rest assured. That is also a jar file, and you can automate your APIs. Then you will be adding one more jar file, which is called as Appium. And you can automate things on your iOS and Android devices. You can automate WhatsApp, Facebook. You can make a phone call. You can send a message on your real devices. For that, you need not to invest in any other tool. You just need to add one open source jar file. That is what Appium is. Now you need to connect to database. You've added one jar file. So yesterday, what we did, we listed out what all type of testing are there. So all these testing, this can be done through Selenium. This can be done through Appium, and Appium is also a jar file. It's a jar file. This can be done using JDBC, right? We have added a jar file. This can be done using rest assured jar. And there is another library. There are many libraries available for desktop as well. Something called as Vinium is there, right? If you search for this is nothing. This is just a jar file. If you use this, or there is another one which is created by Appium, which is called as WinAppDriver. This is another jar file. If you use this, you can launch a notepad and you can automate a notepad as well. And all these things, you need not to do it in a different project. You can integrate all these things in one single Java project. You can manage your UI automation, API automation, mobile automation, desktop, database, everything in one single project. Then why you are using Postman separately to test API, and then RPA to do functional automation, and then any third tool to do mobile automation, instead of using different tools, when we can use all the things in one single Java project. That is why Selenium is very popular. Because when we get started with automation, the very first thing comes is the front-end automation, UI automation, and Selenium automates the UI. So that is why we say Selenium is like base for automation. So down the line, when you are in the automation industry for 2, 3, 4 years, you'll be practically working on API automation, Appium mobile automation. You'll be integrating all these things and developing a whole big framework. Right? So I guess your question is clear now.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. So that's all, guys. We'll be starting this batch from next weekend. That is confirmed. So people who have joined new, you guys will be moving to the core Java batch. And I'll be creating the WhatsApp groups and the new meeting invites. We'll be sharing it with everyone on your email ID. And people who are already done with the Java part, you'll be continuing with me from next weekend. Again, WhatsApp group is already created. I have changed the name to Selenium now from Java. So same, like I'll be sending the new meeting invites in your WhatsApp group. And people who joined as a demo, you guys, in case you want, you can enroll yourself directly from the website, from this lifetime membership page. So you can enroll yourself from here. And in case some of you are joined from US or other part of the world, you can enroll from here. Otherwise, this is from the Indian currency. And you can even do Google Pay, Phone Pay, Paytm, whichever mode you're comfortable. And once you're done, you'll be added to our lifetime membership. You're going to get access to all the courses and can join the live sessions. What all live sessions that we are conducting right now. Right.
So Rahul, how much sessions will be there for Selenium? Like how much time will it take to cover everything?
It is going to take at least 14 sessions will be there on Selenium, 7 weekends.
7 weekends. Okay.
Right. So thanks a lot, guys. I'll be sending out all this information on your mail ID along with the recordings of yesterday and today's session. And I hope you guys have enjoyed these 2 sessions. So we'll be doing the same pace in our upcoming sessions as well.
Can you say it again? I mean, who can continue this part and who is supposed to attend the Java session?
The people who have already completed Java and people who already know Java can continue from the same Selenium part. From the next session, we'll be starting directly from Selenium. And people who are new to programming and who have recently joined will be moving to the Java batch from next Saturday. Timings will remain same.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
So the link for the Java session will be shared with us.
Yeah. I'll be sharing it.
Okay. Thank you.
Rahul, this Selenium also covers the cosmetic testing automation also, like label should be this much size and other things.
Yeah, we can do that. I'll show you how to get the size of any particular image, the height, width of any button. These are things that you can calculate using Selenium. We have methods available for that.
Okay, fine. Because in manual testing, we do a lot of things in that.
Absolutely.
Check for the look and feel of the. So
Yeah.
that is also possible.
Even you can check whether this particular font color is black or not. This can also be done using Selenium. We have functionalities with Selenium. Yeah.
Thanks, Rahul.
Sure. Okay. Any more questions, guys? Otherwise, we are good to wind up. So I'll hope to see you next weekend.
Rahul, you told about 7 weekends for the complete Selenium, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that will include everything which you told us, like
all these
everything.
Things will be covering in the library. Yeah.
Okay.
Sir, I was asking that can I join Java classes in any upcoming session?
Yeah, coming Saturday you can start with the Java part. That's fine.
Okay. Thank you.
So Rahul, just one question. If we are joining the Java and started working on Selenium simultaneously, so can we ask or how to reach you if we have any question on Selenium?
You can reach to me via WhatsApp, or all this information I'm reachable on these numbers. So you can WhatsApp me on this. This is my mail ID. This is my Skype ID. So you can directly reach to me on this.
Okay, and somewhere there is like where we can park our questions only. This is the WhatsApp only or the email, or
you'll be added to WhatsApp groups, so you can post your questions in the WhatsApp groups, or you can also post it in the like lifetime membership Google group as well. You can send your queries over there as well, or you can directly mail it to me. You can draft a complete mail along with the screenshots and the scenario that you're facing, and then you can forward it to me.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks.
All right. Sure, guys. So thanks a lot for joining. I'll hope to see you next weekend. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Rahul.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Rahul.